Well, my channel's been on a serious drought, so I suppose it's time to talk about a game that's become a hyperfixation to me recently, Pressure. Despite what people will tell you the game is a clone of, this style of gameplay can honestly be traced all the way back to Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion, so I call them mansion-likes. And if you read the title, well, I want to talk about the oh-so-commonly requested idea of putting modifiers in the game. Now it makes sense why modifiers should be added. They're honestly just a good addition to any mansion-like, in a similar vein to how you should always add an endless mode if you're gonna make one. To make the idea of how they should work simple, basically the players should get a menu before the game starts to decide what they want to turn on. Much like the dead drop shop, the player would have to die at least once to even use them, and the modifiers that affect more specific threats should require you to encounter said threats before you can touch them. The reason for these two conditions is so little Timmy over there doesn't accidentally turn his first ever game into Smiling Figure's latest video. Anyway, I decided to make a list of 10 modifier ideas plus an extra section just for the sake of having some fun. And to make sure they're, well, actually interesting, I'm not gonna make half of them just the ability to disable a certain item or something like that. Minor things like that are fairly obvious and should be available to any player by default, and the only one I made that's really in this vein is the one that I have up first. That one being... So this is my basic entry. Like Haste Indoors and Goatman and Grace, you're put on a timer that forces you to get a move on and speedrun your way through the black site a few chunks at a time. Unlike these two though, it probably wouldn't be a monster that's forcing you to do that, but rather HQ. Urban Shade is probably on a time crunch that day, and if they find you're slacking off too much, they'll just detonate your PDG right then and there, and then just send in somebody who will actually listen. And as a basic modifier, I think it works as a default option. No specific tasks or achievements required. I feel like this is self-explanatory, but basically what this would do is automatically set Infestation to his enraged or outraged phase respectively right from the start of a run. Naturally, the way you'd earn this is by getting the plus enraged badge, and like I said, this is basically to ensure you know what the hell you're doing before you do it. I kind of presented this as two modifiers, but it would probably just be one with the options of off, enrage, and outrage for the sake of simplicity. Next up is a hazard-based one. The hijack speakers normally found in the ridge that set off your PDG if you stand near them for too long now appear throughout your entire venture through the black site, creating more danger zones and forcing you to be more spatially aware. Despite certain aspects of the ridge pissing me off, which we'll get to later, this is one that I'd probably try frequently because of the specific effect that it has. And likewise, this would require the Letting Go of Poverty Watch This badge, which is earned by dying to these hijack speakers in the first place. You know, I first thought of a modifier that would just make dark rooms more common, so getting the Squiddle document isn't the most painful chore ever, but I went for a more unique route. So my new idea for the modifier is that Squiddles will actively move towards the closest player who isn't looking at them to get within aggro range. Things like if they attack instantly when in rage or not, and how quickly they move towards somebody is, well, up for debate, possibly even being an intensity setting like the Infestation one. The required badge would be a shot in the dark, mostly because too close to the sun pretty much has to be obtained by complete accident. This one's an idea I actually saw from somebody else, and unfortunately I can't credit them since I didn't manage to get their name. But if you're out there, just know that I'm talking about this because I really like it. Anyway, Sebastian Shop is replaced by Sea Bunnies, let's say a room with like 5 of them, and you have to trade to get good stuff out of them. To balance this out though, these particular sea bunnies would probably have a higher chance of getting you better stuff from trades, just to be a little fair, and also other sea bunny rooms won't spawn. I'd say the ability to use this modifier would require both Wawa and Uneasy Alliance. So you remember when I said there was something about the ridge that pissed me off? Well, I don't know if it's a bug or I'm just stupid, but wall dwellers in the ridge for some reason just don't make any noises when I play the game. And if I have to die because of that, you best believe I want everyone else to suffer through that, regardless of where in the game they are. The ability to give wall dwellers a mute button would be unlocked by the They're in the Walls badge. The gist of this one is that medkits spawn more frequently, but you're bleeding, which basically just means you're losing health on a constant basis. You have to find and ration medkits to stay topped off, but also make sure you, well, still have a lifeline on hand. And as a little bonus, if you happen to find a perithecine, it will stop your bleeding for a short time in reference to, well, its ability to stop bleeding in decaying winter. As for the unlock condition, finding the document for the Guardian Angel, because fun fact, Urban Shade drains its blood to drink in order to remain pure in divine judgment. I couldn't really think of a cool or funny name for this one, but the hilarious concept will hopefully make up for it. Stand already appears rarely in like one specific room right now, and is also going to be part of an entire identity fraud grand encounter in the next update. So, I thought it'd be funny to let Stan go back to his roots and follow you throughout the entire game in a similar fashion to how he acts in identity fraud, including his complete lack of any animations whatsoever. Naturally, this would be unlocked by getting his document, which you get, well, either by dying to him or finding it in heavy containment, and also probably dying to the grand encounter in the next update or something. That's right, you guessed it, this one basically applies the blackout from the ridge to the entire game, with more angler encounters than their real-life population and everything. This already kinda happens in endless mode around like 400 or so rooms in, which granted might be a bug according to my knowledge, but I feel like there's some players who would get a kick out of being able to do this to their game on purpose. As for unlocking this abomination of a modifier, I'd say getting the Ridge document, which is found in the Ridge's security checkpoint in the main game. So for those of you who don't know, there's a slim chance that IDS turrets can be loaded with void-tipped rounds that cause poison damage on top of shooting you. Don't feel bad if you didn't know this, cause not even I have seen them, and I've encountered the likes of Mirage, Harbinger, and Styx. This modifier would seek to fix that by making all IDS turrets in your run be loaded with void-tipped ammo. And since the Volcala Void Mass document is what tells you about this, I'd say a combination of having this document and the Those Were the Bad Turrets badge would be needed to use it. And lastly, before we end the video off, I said I also had a bonus category on top of my list of modifiers. There are a lot of challenges in Pressure, and a couple of them are tied to doing an entire run a specific way. Probably the most well-known example of this is the hilariously named "We didn't playtest this to make sure this was possible," or as it's better known among the community, Lockerless, getting through the entire game without using a locker. Well, it'd be convenient to have a special challenge modifier that, say, replaced all the lockers with their busted variant that can't be used. I think a great example of a challenge that could benefit from this is Glutton for Punishment. It's already like the hardest challenge in the game by like 3,000 miles, so the least we could do is throw people a bone by not forcing them to restart the game 5 times, so RNG will finally let them even begin an attempt at it, let alone consider the possibility of beating it. Anyway, that was a list of modifier ideas I made just for the hell of it as a way to show off the potential that modifiers for this game have. I know I joked about it in the intro, but the Hell Mode video by Smiling Figure, well, isn't actually about modifiers, but I still think it perfectly shows off the absolute hilarious states that this game could potentially reach if we were given this kind of power. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you all another time. Bye.